Hi, this is Laura, and welcome to week 2 of our UX UI course. This week, we will spend time on further understanding empathy and connecting the work you did in week 1, which was your empathy map, your point of view statements, and your how might we questions, to user research and your problem statement that you have come up with, which is your design narrative. And then we'll further look at user research and why it's important, and then an overview of our week 2 activities, which we will spend time designing plans and embedding feedback, where you will have an individual and group assignment, and then you will practice feedback by using what's called a 4 categories method, and then you'll have a all class discussion related to probes and context mapping, so you can explore that as an option in user research for the future. So to further contextualize where we're going, on the left here, you'll see the 5 phases in design thinking. We've really been spending most of our time on empathize and define, and those elements allow us to identify what we're calling our design narrative or challenge, and also our end users, and begin to empathize with them related to the challenge that we are going to work on this term. This week, we will take the empathize and define and further understand it and work on it by conducting user research. And then how that happens is by understanding empathy. So what is empathy in the context of UX UI? It is the ability that designers gain from research to understand users' problems, needs, and desires so that they can design a good and solid solution. And as designers, we should strive for empathy by probing users' worlds, defining their problems, and then ideating to the solution that improves their lives. And in this course, we're specifically tracking on learning experiences. So as you think about your design challenge and user research, we're looking at ways to provide a learning experience to our end users and what that they may experience. So to understand your users or customers fully, you must see and feel their worlds from their perspective. So as I noted before, the initial work for empathy began with framing the problem, which was your design narrative or challenge from last week, creating an empathy map to better understand the users that you will be preparing the learning experience for, and then also working on point of view statements and how might we questions. So those were all done in week 1. And then this week you'll take that, and so the subsequent work this week will include user research based on your identified problem, which is your design narrative, your initial empathy map, your point of view statements, and your how might we questions, so that you'll be exercising additional empathy and user research steps. And in the Canvas module week 2, you will see a number of resources in there that will help you further understand these topics. Now, the importance of user research is to help you make a product, in this case, a learning experience that your customers actually want. And keep in mind, as learners, adults tend to want something that is meaningful and relevant to them. So for this to be successful, you need to know what your users want as early as possible in your design process. And so from a learning perspective, as I mentioned, they need to be meaningful, engaging, and this requires you to have an understanding of your users' challenges, needs, and experiences. So this particular piece here of user research is we're not going to conduct the research yet. We're just going to talk about how we would go about doing that. And so what differentiates a product and an experience is how it feels. So what you want to be thinking about is the feelings a user might have as you design this learning experience. Okay, so our first assignment, and there's a lot of content on this slide, but I copied it out of Canvas just so that you would have it in front of you if you're watching the video. You're going to have an individual and small group assignment. Essentially, you're going to prepare your individual assignment and then submit it out to your small group for feedback. But the idea is for you to plan and embed feedback so that you can get some peer review guidance from others in the course. And how you will do that is you will essentially be answering these questions related to your problem that you crafted in week 1. So you will come up with a hypothesis, and in the assignment you're going to be coming up with 2 of these so that your peers can give you guidance on what they believe to be possibly the best approach for your design. And so you will come up with a hypothesis or a question and what you want to learn. You'll provide evidence of the problem. This is where your empathy map will come in handy, and what the user needs. And again, a lot of this you haven't actually you may have talked to some end users, but if not, you're going to do the best you can with what you know about your end users. And then for data collection, you're going to talk about how you plan to capture the data. So part of our week this week was giving you a lot of information about how you could gather data from your end users, such as quantitative or qualitative. A qualitative example would be interviews. And so you're going to just review that and then talk about what kind of steps you might take in order to do data collection. And then lastly, you're going to describe the action, how you plan to use the data that you gather for the user experience in design. So this all is in Canvas, as I mentioned, but you may want to, look back to this also for guidance as you go. And you're going to be coming up with 2 different scenarios that you will answer these questions so that you can get feedback. Here's an example of what you're going to turn in. So I mentioned this, you're going to have like a scenario 1 and a scenario 2. Please rely on your empathy maps, your design problem, whatever it was that you identified in week 1, your point of view statements, and how might we questions. You got information and feedback last week from other students on the point of view and how might we questions. So here is where you can use that to help guide you. And then ultimately you're trying to refine the scenario that you will focus on for this the remainder of this course. Now, once you this is the next step. Once you submit your individual assignment and your small group assignment will be back to this. This is what you're going to submit. You don't have to use this template, but I did provide it for you in Canvas if you choose to use it. Once you submit this, then your peers in your group will use this 4 categories method to give you some feedback. And this 4 categories method allows for them to give you, based on what you've described in the items previously in your embedded feedback document, what approach might be most rational, most delightful, most darling, and what's called the long shot. It's slightly different words that we're going to use to hopefully make it clearer, but they will use this method in order to help give you some feedback for you to refine your design. So this is an example of this is in the small group assignment area, and you can again use this template or something else that is similar to it, but you're going to then as a peer reviewer look at 2 other peers and their embedded information that they have submitted in their post, and then you're going to copy the information out based on what you find to be their most rational choice, the most unique, which is the darling, the most likely to delight, and the long shot. And again, keep in mind that you're trying to help them refine what they are in fact going to work on the rest of the term. Then lastly, this is just a summary of what we're going to be covering this week, and to keep you focused on this idea of empathy and human-centered design, so that you design for the end user in mind. And all of this is practice of these concepts. So nothing needs to be perfect. It just needs to be practice. And so throw ideas out there, do your best. And so the week 2 activities, you'll review your empathy, user research, and related resources that are in Canvas. You'll create the design plan and embedded feedback document. That's the individual assignment and the small group assignment. You will, in the small group area, share that embedded feedback document with your peers. And then you all will conduct peer review for 2 other individuals using the 4 categories method. And then that will help you further refine your design narrative challenge using the feedback received. And then lastly, there's an activity for you to, in the all-class discussion board, to reflect on probes and context mapping. This is a pretty in-depth type of process, but there's some good resources, and I thought it would be useful for you to be aware of it. So your discussion post will be on that for you to at least reflect on and consider. And then this is from our week 1 that we kind of did the whole learner design, user experience, user interface design, how empathy plays a role, the point of view Mad Libs that we did, and the how might we questions, how that further helps you to empathize and define so that you can get to a point of addressing your design problem in a way that is very human and user-centered. I hope that helps you, and I wish you a good week. Thank you.